competitive tendering, sole sourcing, restricted tendering, price quotation. We can use it for all these methods. Single source also, and this is what I'm. This is why we use this method. So, for example, you have items, that you procure all the time. It's very repetitive. You procure today, the next time another unit is bringing it, another user. So it's very frequent, So instead of going through the processes all the time, to procure, you said, okay, let's have all the requirements for these items. Let's go through one process. All right, it could be national competitive tendering, it could be price quotation, it could be single source, it could be, how do you call it, restricted tendering, to procure these items. And this is what you do. You do an advert like a national competitive tendering, but you use a different tender document. And so you can do what we call multiple supplier framework or a single supplier framework. So in your tender document, you state it. And what it means is that when the bidders respond and you evaluate, when you are doing a multiple supplier arrangement, you will select some number of firms and conclude an arrangement with them. If it's a single supplier, out of all the firms that responded, you select one and conclude an arrangement with them. Now, when you are done with this, you go to another phase that's called the secondary procurement. The first process to conclude the agreement is primary procurement. The second one is secondary procurement. And during the secondary procurement, you do what we call call-off. And so that is where you are going to have a contract with the selected firm or firms. And so you have done that for stationery. Let's take, for example, and so the whole year, your stationery is on framework agreements. You have about 5 suppliers. You can either, out of the 5, you can distribute, the quantities among them. And say, for example, the person who give me the lowest price, I'm giving 50% of the items to him. The second one will get 30, the next one will get 20, 10, 100%. Or you say, all these firms that I've qualified them, I've completed an agreement with them, I'm going to subject them to a mini competition, and that anytime there's a call-off, I'm going to write to all of them to submit quotations so that we choose the lowest. But if you are very sure with a supplier and you go single supplier, you have one supplier and you conclude the arrangement with them. So anytime you need the item, you do a call-off and write to him and say, I want this number of this item, particular thing. And the price has already been agreed in the arrangement. And so they give you a quotation and you instruct them to supply. And so this is a very, very important method that users can use. And it helps a lot than going through repetitive processes, to procure items. It saves people and it saves your time as well. Pre-qualification, it's mandatory when you go beyond, for example, in goods, 10 million, in works, 50 million, and in services, 5 million. And so if you don't want to do international competitive tendering because you feel that you can get the expertise locally, you do what they call pre-qualification. So you advertise, in the papers, like an expression of interest that you want to pre-qualify suppliers for this particular procurement of the particular item, and they submit their responses, their CVs and all that, and you select a few of them and you subject them to competition. Yes, that's the almighty e-procurement. Now that is what we are doing. That is where we are conducting procurement. E-procurement is electronic procurement, and the PPA has come out with a platform called GANEPS, Ghana Electronic Procurement System. This is where we conduct procurement. And this is not different from the manual things that we've been doing. You know, you go through an advert, you go through tender opening, you go through evaluation, you do an award, you now, how do you call it, engage a supplier to supply. But this time, it's electronic. And so we are going to send the adverts electronically. We are going to post the tender document electronically. Suppliers are going to purchase the tender document electronically. They are going to submit electronically, and evaluation is going to be done electronically. And of course, the reports will be printed, and tender committee will sit and award. And it's very, very, very efficient. Very, very efficient. The only challenge we have in e-procurement is the evaluation. It's a bit slow and a bit cumbersome. And I think we raised this issue when we met in the 11th annual procurement forum. And they are looking at it. This is a new system. You want to do something about it. And so electronic procurement. Disposal of assets. Very often you find people keeping a lot of old items in their offices, congesting the offices. You don't even find a space to work, you know. And so the law has provisions for disposal of assets. And so the law says the entity should set up a board of survey. And so if you have any item that is unserviceable, you don't need it, you write to the board of survey. You come and do an assessment, move the item, and deport it off. Right? They can do it by a public auction, or if they feel the item is usable, they can even donate it to any other public entity that needs it. Offenses in procurement. And I want us to stay a little bit here, because that is where we have all these challenges. Section 92(1) says a person who contravenes a provision of this act commits an offense, and where a penalty is not provided for the offense, the person is liable on summary count of conviction to a fine not exceeding 2,500 penalty units, or term of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years, or both the fine and imprisonment. Public procurement practitioners should be reading this on a daily basis. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if there is any problem, you are the first person to be held accountable. They will say the head of entity is accountable. But if you look at section 17 of the Procurement Act, it's telling you that any officer that is given a responsibility answers for their actions. And so the head of entity has submitted a document to you, please, for action. And you don't go by the provisions in the act because of pressure, because for reasons best known to us practitioners, and you sidestep any of these processes, the day of auditing, you'll be in trouble, and you find your way answering questions in public accounts in the parliament. So we have to be very careful here. When there's a problem, the head of entity can tell you that, well, me, for example, here, my VC is a pharmacist. You say, I'm a pharmacist. I know about drugs. and he is my chief procurement advisor. And so if he advised me wrongly, that is it. And so please, public procurement is about compliance. Public procurement is about documentation. And public procurement, it's about being careful about infractions, because it can lead you to prison. Somebody will say, what is 2,500 penalty units? You see, the last time I checked, it was 12 cedis. One penalty unit is 12 cedis. And so somebody will say, okay, if I'm giving you the maximum 2,500 penalty units, that's 12 times 2,500, that's about 30,000. That's 30,000 I can pay. And so what is it? But remember, you are an ex-convict. If you are not in prison and you are fined, I mean, you have been convicted. And so this is something that we have to be careful about. Please, let's make sure that we have close engagement with the stakeholders. I'm talking about the users. If they want something, let's engage them. That will save us from some of these infractions. And one thing that I also recommend to public procurement practitioners is that once in a while, you hold, a workshop, organize a workshop for the users. And one thing that will save you is having educated user community. If the users are educated, if they understand the provisions, your work is easy. Sometimes users do things, out of their way because they want results. They want to get a thing to do their work, not because of any other motive, and they get it wrong. They bring it to you, and you have to find a way. Please, if you engage them and they know the rules, some of these things will be minimized. And so stakeholder engagement is very, very important to avoid some of these infractions. And please, the other thing is that you need to have a PhD, in soft skills. You have to be polite. You have to learn politeness, how to engage the users. Because these are people who want the thing as of yesterday. They submit their request today, but they need the item as of yesterday. And so everything is agenda about them. But please, you need to find a very beautiful way, polite way of trying to explain matters to them, so that they will understand that you need to go through a process to get some of this thing done. If you don't, and you know that this thing is beyond the threshold of the VC, this thing is beyond the threshold of the method that I'm using, but because you're also in a hurry and there's pressure coming from the user, you commit an offense, please, section 92(1) has to remind you that you have a duty to comply with the law. And the other thing is that you have to also be prepared to take responsibility of anything that happens that goes wrong in procurement. If procurement goes wrong, bad procurement is the procurement officer. If it's good, nobody talks about it. And so one thing that you should note is that you have to also develop a very thick skin and close your ears to corridor talks. That's how I refer to them, because you hear a lot of things about you practitioners. Procurement officers are this, procurement officers are that. But that shouldn't affect your work, and that shouldn't affect your relationship with the users, because you are there because of them, and you are there to serve them. And so please, let's make sure that in all we do, we have in mind compliance, and we have in mind value for money. Thank you. I'm done.
All right, thank you very, very much, Mr. Fredua. That was very insightful. I like the way you ended with the caution, because that is where the issue is. And I like that we are prompting our students, because they have to know that the area is rewarding genuinely, and it is not an avenue that they can just exploit it without using the lay down rules. So we are very glad that you've been able to give us such a rich insight. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fredua has taken us through the procurement structures, the procurement planning, the procurement thresholds, the methods, contract management, e-procurement, disposal of items, and obviously the offenses and its penalties and how to avoid them. Please, that is extremely crucial. In as much as we need the technical knowledge to be able to manage procurement activities and all, we need to also be very, very cautious when it comes to issues of offenses. Don't be a convict. Even when you can pay, avoid it. And if you look at his rich experience, please listen, because he's been able to, rise through the various ranks to this great position because he was able to observe the rules. Thank you very much. All right, so at this time, we want to give students the opportunity to ask questions. Some of you can be sending your questions through the chat. I'll be reading it to ask Mr. Fredua, but I'll also ask others who have raised their hands up to also do that. So, but if you don't have your full name, I'm not going to call you, because we are teaching you procurement. You need to also learn the rules that we give. All right, so Sahaku Yusuf, you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Yusuf.
So, my question is, you talked about the evaluation panel and then tender evaluation. I have a question. Is it compulsory to pick or select the panel members from the entity committee, or you can do that, or you can pick outside people, those who are not part of the committee? Is the law permitted to do that?
Okay. Dr. Lucas, can I answer?
Yeah, please. Let's answer that intent. So do that, please.
Okay, all right. So, the law doesn't allow any member of the tender committee to be part of an evaluation panel. But maybe you are referring to the entity. And so, for example, if K University want to procure something and we've gone through, how do you call it, all the processes, and we are now at evaluation, is the head of entity, that's the CEO, that will compose the panel. And normally they look at somebody with procurement experience, they look at somebody with legal experience, you look at somebody with a technical experience in the item that we are going to procure, and they also look at somebody with financial experience, somebody with experience in finance. And so you made a very significant point. The law is very clear that no member of the tender committee can be a member of a tender evaluation panel, because the recommendation from the tender evaluation panel is going to be scrutinized by the tender committee. You cannot go and scrutinize your own work, right? And so that is it. Talking about outside, yes, if the entity feels that they need an expertise from outside the entity to evaluate, you can always invite someone to come and sit on the panel.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I want to invite Emmanuel, is it Bibili? Yeah, if I didn't get it right, forgive me. Please unmute and ask your question.
Hello, good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ma.
Okay, my name is As I said, my name is Emmanuel Bilbe Adamu. That is my name. My
Okay.
question has to do with what you talk about, the section 17 and 92, the offenses.
Correct.
In a situation whereby a procurement officer, you don't have voting right at the entity meeting, you are just a secretary. So with these offenses, does it apply? As you said, we know that the officer is there. Is he really applying to us as you don't have voting rights, because you are just there to record what is there and then put it in the paper, but you have to coordinate the processes before the award is given?
Okay, thanks, Ima. Yes, you are the secretary to the committee. You don't have a voting right. But remember, the documents emanated from your office. The documents, that evaluation report that went to the tender committee, came from your office. And so, as I said earlier, if you know the threshold of an item, the estimated quantity of an figure of an item, and you know that it doesn't fit a threshold, but you use that threshold, you use that method, to go through all the processes, and it goes to the tender committee, and the tender committee doesn't spot it, and it goes through the process, and the contract is awarded, and an issue is raised. It's not the tender committee members, that use the wrong method, it's you. All right? If you are doing evaluation and you bring in extrinsic issues that were not in the tender criteria that you don't find in your tender documents, and you use it to disqualify somebody, or you alter somebody's submission to gain advantage, it goes to the tender committee, the tender committee approves, and there is an issue. It is the tender evaluation panel or the member who did that. All right. And so you sit in tender committee, you have no voting right, but the documents that are going to be considered by the tender committee emanated from your side. You started the process. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Emmanuel, are you okay? All right. Let's also call Emmanuel Kojo Obutu. Emmanuel, unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, Doc. My question has to go with procurement threshold. Looking at the figures involved, it has been there since 2022 or 3, and the price of things are increasing, and we are still using the same figures. That is the threshold figures. So I want to ask if there's a way of there's a way in which we can adapt to change those figures there, because it has been there for a long time, for the past 23 years. That is the same figures that we are using for our procurement activities. So I want to find out if we can make an amendment on that. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, so Henry, it's not. Right. Thank you, Harry. Harry, the last time we reviewed the threshold was in 2016, and so these thresholds are not 20 years old. 2016 minus 2026, that's about 10 years now. But I agree with you 100% that the thresholds, are low now. But the good news is that the PPA has done something to cabinet, and I'm told it's on its way to Parliament to increase the threshold. And for example, the VCs in where I am, the KNUST, the VC threshold is now currently 100,000. The proposal is now the VC threshold should be moved to 800,000. And so, I mean, about how many percent? So much. And so, yes, the Public Procurement Authority has seen that the entities are struggling with the thresholds. And so, I mean, there's something in the pipeline. I want to believe that by the middle of this year, those thresholds will be changed.
All right, thank you very much. So, Henry, Duritib, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Madam, for your time. Having studied this course for some time now, I've realized that like public procurement is full of committees, full of authorities that supervises their day-to-day activities. Yet day in, day out, every year, eventually we hear Auditor General giving complaints. Parliamentary Select Committee on Public Accounts Committee is always on public officers. So is it that the practice at the work level is different from what we are learning, or what we are learning is what we are supposed to be practicing? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can see the name. Yes,
It's Henry.
Henry, thank you for your question. The experiences I shared, most of them related to the university because that's where I work, right? But it's everywhere. It's in every public sector organization. It is everywhere. If you work in any public sector organization, you are supposed to use the act in conducting procurement, and the provisions are very clear. And as I said, and so you made a point. You answered the question. Why is that we find them there? The reason we find them there is that they don't comply with the provisions in the act. And so I'm here. I've been doing this thing for a long time. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but we try as much as possible to limit the infractions, to a point that you may have done something like we have gone contrary to the rule, but some of the things it's just penalty to be a slap on the wrist, but some of them will take you to public accounts. And so it's everywhere, but just have ground practitioners, sometimes, I'm sorry to say, neglect their duty, of telling their CEOs and the other stakeholders, to stick to what the law says.
All right, thank you very much. Let's call Linda Della. Linda, please unmute and speak.
Okay, thank you, Madam. Prof, please, initially in your submission, I wanted to ask whether the penalty unit is in monetary form, but in your submission, you said yes, it's in monetary form. But then I wanted to ask again, does the amount keep increasing as in from time to time, or it keeps decreasing?
On the lighter side, on the lighter side, do you want to commit an infraction so that you can weigh how you are going to be punished? That's on the lighter side. You see, I said the penalty unit, one unit is 12 cedis, and the maximum it is 2,500. And so it's possible that the infraction that you commit might call for maybe 200 penalty units or 10 penalty units, and then in that case you are paying 120. But the bottom line is that you have been convicted, you are an ex-convict, and nobody wants to carry that tag. All right, and so whatever we are doing, we try as much as possible to avoid infraction.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, James, please ask your question.
Yes, madam, thank you very much. Yeah, Prof, I'm happy to hear that you are on one of our board from NEDCO. Thank you. Yes, please, I wanted to find out the difference between the sole source and then the single, sole sourcing. And then also, if with in terms of the threshold, if I should divide the value of the project or the contract to avoid going to entity tender committee, does that call for an infraction or call for a punishment if I should divide the value of the project? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is it Desmond or
James?
Yeah,
James. Okay, James. Yeah. Okay, James. I sit on the tender committee. Yes. So Netco. I was in Tamale. I used to come there, but now I'm in Kumasi, so I do the work online. Yes, but I think your question was the difference between sole sourcing and single sourcing. That's what we wanted to ask. We use them interchangeably, but there's a difference. Sole sourcing, when you can get it from only one particular supplier, okay, and so you go to that person and go to the tender, go to PPA for approval. Single source, we have multiple of them, but you decided to pick one because of agency, and award a contract, to the person by going through the process. Yes, and so that's the difference. We were talking about breaking down. How do you call it? A request. Yes, you see, the law also frowns on that. And so, for example, if you have a request that it's the estimated figure is around 200,000 or at least 180,000, and you know that the threshold for price quotation is 100,000 for goods, but because you want to how do you call it? You don't want to use that method, that's a competitive tender. You say, let me use price quotation, and so you do something like 90,000. Okay. Meanwhile, is the procurement of let's say 20 number laptops, the same specification, everything. You do 20,000, and the moment you finish awarding the contract, you do another 20,000. Then the next week, the law says no, it's an infraction. Yes, and so we have to order. There are genuine instances where you finish a procurement and the user wants some more, right? And so in that case, you can do an addendum to the contracts. And so, for example, the commodities were 10. It was around the contract figure was around 89,000. And the moment the items were delivered, they come and tell you that no, how do you call it? I need some more. So if the quantity does not exceed, what you asked for initially, you can do an amendment to the contract. That is not breaking. But if you are breaking intentionally to escape a threshold or to escape using a method, then that is an infraction.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Ebenezer Kwesi Yeboah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Mr. Ajimai, my question goes to the Procurement Act. I want to know, does the Procurement Act also contains provisions that extend to the private procurement sectors? I noticed your presentation focused mainly on public procurement, but it did not address private procurement practice in terms of the penalties and the offenses. Does the Act also have some provisions for those practicing at the private sector as well? Thank you.
No, it's for only how do you call it? Public sector entities. It's only public sector entities. And so if you look at the scope of the law, it tells you that funds, how do you call it, that are public or procurement that are financed in whole or in parts, like by public purse. And so yes, if you look at the topic, you're talking about public procurement, and so this does not apply to the private sector. It's mainly public sector entities, that this applies to.
All right, thank you. Peter Sashi, you can go ahead. But before that, all students are to switch off their videos to improve the connectivity. Thank you. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, Doc, for the opportunity. And thank you, Senior Duke, for the presentation. I just want to make some few contributions as well to the discussion. In relation to the low value, you made us know about the non-perishable, that is with a threshold of 5,000 Ghana cedis. We also have the perishables low value form, which also has a threshold of 10,000 Ghana cedis, depending on what you are buying, whether it's perishable or non-perishable. Then in relation to the section 17, where the head of entity and the procurement officer shall be held liable for any infraction. Doc talked about the approval structures. You have the head of entity, you have the tender committee, especially in the case of public institutions where political heads are in charge and who are not familiar with the procurement processes. I will entreat all of us in the public sector and those of us who dream of coming onto the public space to work there, that whenever we are submitting our evaluation report to the head of entity, we should make it clearly stated on the memo submitting the report, advising the head of entity that whatever we are submitting, the amount involved, the threshold, falls within the powers of either the entity tender committee or maybe, for instance, the regional tender review committee, so that that aspect will be clear to whoever the head of institution is, and to avoid any future infractions. Then on the aspect of GANEBS, I want to say that Doc mentioned that one of the challenges is that the evaluation is slow, and then cumbersome. One other challenge I also have deduced is the inability of the system to generate a tender opening minutes, because a tender opening bid is generated. In our manual procurement, we are mandated to do minutes and the like, but on the system, no minute is generated per the tender opening that is done on the system. And if you don't do any minutes manually, you go for approval, the committee will be requesting that, why didn't you do any minutes? So that is one of the challenges associated with the system, the absence of tender opening minutes to support the evaluation. And the evaluation report too, when you generate it, it's not complete in its entirety. It means that you still have to make some changes to it and make it look more appealing before you send it for approval. So this is the little contribution that I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Kojo, for the contribution. Yes,
Peter, please.
Peter, sorry. You mentioned the tender committee sticking to their thresholds. If they are not doing that, Kojo, is a very serious thing, because it goes there and they know that, for example, here 800,000. Professor Rita Dixon, I mean, he won't entertain anyway that this thing is not beyond. He's in a hurry to forward it to CTRC. So it's also a duty to be able to put that foot down a bit. I know what you're talking about. That, you know, in some of the places, you know, it's very tough to be able to stand up to a CEO and tell him that no, this thing is not right, because he's in a hurry. He wants to do his thing and get some points and go away. You know, his project that he wants to do and take credit. You see, but the law is the law. And at the end of the day, you know, the entity might have problems. And so please, I said, let's be polite. Let's find a very polite way, nice way, you know, going about it, you know, so that they don't feel like you are trying to dictate to them, you know, or you're trying to tell them what to do. But we have to understand that, you know, this is what the law says, and this one is protecting them. And in future, you know, they walk out of the office and nobody will call them to come and account for anything. So it's very, very important. I understand the bit about the evaluation, the tender opening on GANEBS. Yes, it only gives you the figures, but no report. So what we do here is that we prepare our own minutes. Yeah, we prepare it's very small, but we try to, like, you know, generate some minutes ourselves, you know, and attach to the evaluation reports. Yes, and so yeah, we do that.
All right, thank you very much for that. All right, so Miss Alimatu Sadia, please go ahead and ask your question. Okay, if she's delaying, let's call Emmanuel Obeng. Emmanuel, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Doc. And thank you so much, Mr. Fred Bia, for the experience you have shared with us. Mine has to do with procurement of works or engagement of contractors. Can you throw some light on it? In summary, the processes involved. That is my first question. And then secondly, I want to ask about single source procurement. I think in your presentation, you made mention that if you need to do, or if you want to do single source procurement, you need to seek approval from PPA. In case you have issues in terms of network, getting information to them or writing a letter to them, you have network issues. For that reason, you are unable to do it. And what you need to procure is urgent, and that it cannot wait. What do you do, or what can you do so that you don't have issues with infractions? Thank you.
Okay, so I think the first one is works procurement. It's the same as goods and services. There's a little difference. Instead of specifications here, you are preparing bill of quantities, and so the engineers will put together bill of quantities, and we now use that to prepare the tender documents. And after that, it goes through the same process. If it's national competitive tendering, it goes through advertisement, opening, evaluation, and contract award. And so the difference here is goods, you are looking at specification, but here you are looking at, how do you call it, bill of quantities. Yes, that is it. You talk about network problems, so you are not able to reach out to PPA. You see, I want us to comply. You see, I want us to be compliant as much as we can. But PPA is in Accra. Assuming I stayed in the north, so I know the terrain very well. You are very far away, somewhere in the Upper West region. But, you can travel to Accra. What you do is that you have identified this problem. It's an emergency. How much is it going to cost? What are the specifications of the item that I need to procure? If it's work, what are the bill of quantities? Let's put it together in a tender document and carry it yourself to Accra. When I was in Tamale, I was always going to Accra, and even in Kumasi, some of the things I submit them personally and go and talk to them. That please, I know there's a queue, but this thing, I beg you, the next meeting of the board, let it go because we are in trouble. You see, and that's what I mean by soft skills. You need to be able to have that. To be able to, how do you call it, do your job well, to be efficient in your job, and so if it's set even in such a way that somebody is dying and it needs to be done today, that one, you can do it and go for ratification at PPA, but it's very, very difficult, getting to convince them. All right. So the safest thing to do is that you seek approval first before you go ahead.
You have to seek approval first before you go ahead. Thank you. I think I like that. All right. Thank you. Let's hear from Kojo Entry. Kojo Entry, you can unmute now.
Yes. My question is very, very simple and straightforward. I want to know for the tender advertisement that you advertise in the dailies. So in the advert, you state the requirements that you need, a description of the what do you call the product requirement and all of that. So for example, if you advertise and you have about 50 companies that qualify, that can actually undertake a contract or 70, are they going to go through the process of evaluation, opening of tenders, taking into consideration also the timelines to undertake the project? Because the procurement unit also need a product, need or the services. But you have 50 or 70 organizations or companies that qualify, have applied and qualify. In that situation, what are we going to do? Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't experienced 50, but at least I've seen 25 before. You know, dealing with 25 submissions. You don't have an option. You didn't premise your question, or the question is not, the way you put it is not accurate. Out of the 50, none of them can qualify, like, you know, or no, all of them cannot qualify, cannot meet all your requirements. Definitely there are some people who may lose out in submitting one document or the other, or might not even have what we call the manifesto authorization, you know. And so definitely it's like exams. Some people will fall out somewhere, you know, but I get your point. And that is the reason why in some of these projects, you might want to do sole sourcing, because the time, you know, required to do to evaluate this large number of tenders, you know, and looking at the agency of the item, then you might want to say, okay, I want to go sole sourcing for this item. But the moment you open the tender and they respond, you don't have a choice but to go through the process and evaluate. And the challenge is even more difficult when it comes to doing it electronically. It was a nightmare when we had over 20 responses in our 2 of our projects. My goodness, the users, you know, some of them are lecturers and they don't have the luxury of time to sit the whole day. To some of the evaluation took about 3 days, you know, to finish one, you know. So yes, it's very challenging, but you don't have an option when you open tenders. You have to evaluate and award contracts.
I thank you very much. Let's hear from Paul Advetu. We might not be able to cover all your questions, but I'm sure that what is said has been able to deal with much of your concerns. All right, let's hear from you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Doc, and thank you so much, Mr. Ajman. My question has to do with the contract management and then I think the infraction. So you made mention that after you've given out a project, you should be able to do a follow-up so that the supplier doesn't delay the contract and then provides the items. Now, after all the due procedure, when the supplier finally supplies the product or the items, and then probably at the point of inspection, you realize that the supplier actually supplied an inferior goods to what was initially indicated in the documents or in the requirements. In such a state, or probably it is detected later on, does it fall under the infraction? Does it have any does it have any, how do I put it, problem with the officer? How do you go about that?
Okay, so you save yourself of all the trouble, you know, by rejecting the items. You know, because you see, when we are going to inspect, that is why I mentioned that the inspection, like, you know, exercise, you know, in procurement is a very, very important one. So this what happens. During inspection, we bring the contract documents, we look at the specifications, and we look at the items that have been delivered. And so we pick an item, these are the specifications, it has to have this, that. Okay, good. It has to have this, that. You know, if you check, and so for example, you want students' furniture, all right, chair, and you say the backrest should be leather, all right, and it comes and the backrest is wood. Straight away, you reject it. Okay, yes, you reject it straight away. You don't have to waste time because the law says, you see, you take delivery, but you don't take them into stores, you know, until how do you call it? The item are inspected, you know, and you go ahead with other processes. Please reject the items during the inspection stage. Sometimes I see your challenge. Sometimes the items may come in while the users or the technical people are not there to inspect. You can keep the items in the stores. But so far as the inspection has not been done and the certificate has not been signed by the supplier and the university or the entity's staff, you can reject them at any time. And the supplier knows that if the inspection has not been done and the certificate has not been signed, the items can be sent back at any time. And so yes, you can reject the items.
All right. Thank you very much. Nathaniel, is it opening or open? Please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Doc, and good afternoon, Mr. Dick. My name is Opo Nathaniel. I have two questions. One question is based on single person, and other one will be on disposal of items in the public institution. So let me go first on single sourcing. When it comes to single sourcing, you know, the method is being used when the request or the items in need is on urgency or in terms of state security or the national security. So then, I want to ask, what are the strategies for the criteria that an institution will use to pick this supplier and make sure that the supplier or the contractor doesn't do a sudden job. Once the process were not competitive or they didn't follow they didn't follow any competitive standard to select that supplier. What is the criteria or the strategies to use to make sure that the sudden work has not been delivered by the end of that contract? And when it comes to disposal of goods, and my view, I only think this act has been given public institutions the opportunity or some kind of dishonesty when it comes to our maintenance culture to dispose of items that may still be good or still in use for those institutions. Because I only have to do that on what condition, on what basis that an institution cannot mount or consider a machine or a tool obsolete that they cannot use, while that same machine or tool can be optioned to an individual or another institution to maintain and reuse it. So how will I be convinced today that that law doesn't give the institution or public institution to manage our assets when it comes to maintenance culture, but rather giving us value for money? Thank you.
Okay, so your line wasn't too clear, but I'll try and answer the question. You see, you talk about getting value for money from single source, how do you call it, procurements. Yes. I think it is a good concern, you know, The thing is that you have to do this. When you are going because of agency, when you are going because, how do you call it? Agency. You have multiple sources. So you engage one, and after you do due diligence. So you write to them to submit a quotation, okay? Virtually a tender document. And whilst you are doing that, you are also checking with other suppliers, for the same items, how much you are going to get. That is on the side. And so if you submit a bill, a quotation, that is way ahead of what the others are telling you. You have the opportunity to stop it, or to tell them that, no, let's negotiate. This one, I can't pay this for these items. I can pay this. If they agree, they change the quotation and you submit to PPE. If not, you do a due diligence and you realize that, no, it wouldn't help you, you stop. The other leg of transparency is that the PPA themselves, they have what they call the due diligence units. And so there are instances where entities have submitted requests for approval, and they have reduced the prices by a certain margin, sometimes 30%, sometimes 20%. They tell you that when we did our checks, our due diligence, we realized that the price is 20% above the market price. And so we will approve this submission for you 20% the price that you submitted. And so there are ways of checking that. But I agree with you that when you go sole sourcing, suppliers want to take advantage. But there are ways of reducing, how do you call it, how do you call it, getting higher prices for the items. You see, disposal, how do you call it, of items. I don't agree with you. You know why? Because sometimes the maintenance cost of the item becomes so much for the entity. Okay, and so it makes every sense that you bought it off and replace it. So I've heard issues, and I've seen some of them in my practice. I won't deny that a vehicle that has been, declared unserviceable, was auctioned, and somebody from the technical side had it. And in 2 months, you see that car and it's almost brand new. There are issues like that. But largely, you can't use an item that is not efficient to get an efficient result. And so, yes, if 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, it is not giving you the same output, the output that you need, to do your work effectively, there's every point and every right for you to dispose it of. But I understand what you are saying, that people hide behind that and even dispose of things that are not supposed to be disposed of.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe just either the last question, or maybe depending on the time, I may call another person, and then we bring the session to a close. So let's call Abigail Mensah. Please unmute and speak.
Thank you, Doc. Doc, please, my question is, in a situation where a contract is awarded to a supplier through PO, and the supplier fails to deliver within the stipulated time, delivery period to be precise, is the procurement entity permitted to cancel the contract? And if so, what procedures must be followed to go through it?
Okay, thank you. Yes, you are very right. One of the conditions, to terminate contracts a contract, it's when they refuse to, the supplier refuse to deliver, you know, and so if he's supposed to deliver in 2 weeks and after 2 weeks doesn't deliver, you have every right to terminate the contract. But you see, there's a bigger picture, and that picture is what I talk about in contract management. When he's supposed to deliver in 2 weeks, after a week, you write to him reminding him that, you know, the delivery period is this, and you're supposed to bring the item this. All right, good. But sometimes you wait, you don't remind them, and then they go to sleep, and you realize that no, the item, the delivery period has expired. So we have a way, we have like, you know, a responsibility, you know, to engage them all the time. And so if after 2 weeks they don't deliver, that one you take it off. But you see, with a PO, if you ask them to submit a performance bond, you are good, because that's 10% if it's from a bank and 30% if it's from an insurance firm. So if you refuse to deliver, you write to them, terminating the contract, going to the second lowest bidder, and stepping on the performance bond as well. You go to the insurance bank and say, I agreed with this person to supply this, he didn't, so I'm coming for the money. All right, then you take 10% of the contract figure, or 30%, depending on whether it's a bank or it's an insurance firm.
All right, thank you very much. Samuel Wobel.
Okay, good afternoon, madam, and good afternoon, Mr. Fred. Please, I've learned a lot, and I want to say thank you for this professional seminar. And my question is, those of us in the private sector, you know, not all of us work in the public sector. So, and with your teachings, I mean, most of them are practiced in the public sector, but I want to know, those of us in the private sector, what advice do you have for us? So what are some of the acts that we can also introduce in the private sector to also help us? Because, you know, in the private sector, you know, the act doesn't work there most of the time. Don't look at the price and the quality of the things, but sometimes we also feel that, oh, maybe we can also practice a bit of the public procurement so that it can also go through the process so that they can appreciate what the act is. So, Mr. Fred, I want to ask you the advice that you can also offer us, those of us in the private sector, with regards to this act. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. As I said, the law applies to only the public sector, but you see, there are certain things that you can, because this one, a lot of the things were wasn't even taken from the private sector practice. You see, competition is key, and that is why in KNUST, most of our procurement, it's price quotation, that's competition, and even the most transparent competitive method, that's a competitive tendering. So you don't go to only one person, one firm, and say, I want this. Okay, then negotiate with him. You can shop around, you know, and if you are not under pressure, some of these things you can advertise them. You can put them in the papers that this company wants to buy A, B, C, and D. Firms will come with some fantastic offers. You don't have the opportunity to choose the best. So if there's any advice, I would say try and subject some of your procurement to competitive tendering.
All right, thank you very much. I think that will be for now. Most of you still have questions. Unfortunately, I couldn't even read the questions from the chat, but we cannot also overly exhaust our guest speakers. So let's bring it to this session. The next speaker is also scheduled for, exactly 1 p.m. And you know that we cannot also keep you here throughout the period. So thanks so much. Let's note that Mr. Fredua has taken us through the procurement structures and also the procurement planning, the thresholds, the methods, contract management, e-procurement, disposal of items, and he's also cautioned us a lot regarding offenses. And you don't have to joke with that. Sometimes we use all kinds of reasons to compromise on the things that we do, and we are not supposed to do that, right? Whether in terms of it's due to social relation, a cultural issue, religious, or your own personal selfishness, we need to try as much as possible and to avoid that. So thanks so much, Mr. Fredua Ajiman. Today has been a very wonderful time with you, sharing your deep experience with us. We can clearly see that you have a very rich experience, and I'm very glad that you are also working with us in the same institution. Perhaps if there's another opportunity, we will definitely invite you over so that the students can have more sessions with you, practical. I'll discuss with leadership and see the possibility of engaging you, because I think that you are able to share a lot of experience with them, and students also have a lot of concerns. So thanks so much. We appreciate the time that you've spent with us. Your doors were very, very much open to me, and I think you've been very receptive so far. And I've really enjoyed, the exchanges I've made with you. I will surely visit your office again for, additional, possible collaborations ahead. And we still also extend more professional training to our students. Not only this group, we still have so many other programs, and some regular, some distance learning. Today we focused on the distance learning students only for both postgraduate and undergraduate. So I'm sure that you will still welcome me as warmly as you have done over these few days that we've engaged. So God bless you so much, and then we wish you all the very best. Do you want to say anything before you leave?
I want to thank you for the opportunity, and the doors are still open, and I'm looking forward to the visit in the office so that we can discuss more, yes, about how we can help our students, to get a lot more knowledge in public.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure they will love that. Students, I guess you love that, isn't it? You can send your messages. Yeah, so the responses are good. Others are clapping. It's a sign that you've done very well. A lot of students have also sent their feedback about the rich insights that you have actually demonstrated. Others are also very inspired about your rich experience and how you have risen through the ranks. I think they are very, very much inspired, and I'm sure today's engagement with you will help them and also direct their path towards reaching greater heights in their fields of career and all forms of profession. Yeah, they keep on sending the applause. Others are saying awesome, right? Others are applauding. Yeah, most of them are applauding. Awesome, thank you. Yeah, oh yes, oh yes. Thumbs up. So I'm reading so that you know that we very much appreciate. Today we've had over 1,000 students participating. Some joined the Zoom, others are also joined the live stream. So we have a very large audience. So Mr. Duke, you've had a very great impact on our students. And for the master students, most of them are working, so I'm sure it's going to help them advance their own corporations as well, for both the private sector and the public sector. Thank you so much for the session.
Thank you, and have a blessed weekend.
Right, may yours be better. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye. All right, so students, ladies and gentlemen, faculty members, all too soon, we've come to the session of the first, engagement with Mr. Fredua, who took us through the Public Procurement Act as amended from practice, from the law to practice, and he's been able to review a lot of things, including issues of accountability and all that. So now we go to the next session, and I'm also very glad that we have a very, great man in the field of aviation. A very warm person to also deal with, and I'm sure you will experience him also. So I want to take an opportunity to, first of all, welcome, our captain, group captain, Ni Eje Aite, right? He is actually the director for validation, standardization, and others at the Ghana Air Force. So let me take a short period to introduce to you our speaker with his profile so that you will know where he is coming from and then you'll be able to also be inspired. So Group Captain Ni Eje IT. He is actually, as I said, he is currently the Director of Validation, Standardization, and Inspection at the Ghana Air Force, and he specifically at the headquarters. He has a postgraduate diploma in public administration from GIMPA. He also has a Master of Arts in military operational arts from the Ayers University, Montgomery, Alabama. He also has a Master of Arts in Strategic Studies from the National College of Defense Studies in Accra, and is also a fellow of the NCDS. He has a very, very rich experience with the United Nations, mission. He worked as the liaison officer at the United Nations operation in Cote d'Ivoire. Also the Deputy Ghana Aviation Commander at the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali. Also an observer team leader, at the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and also a senior aviation technical compliance officer at the United Nations Multidimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in the Central African Republic. He's had many, positions, right? For example, he was the squadron pilot and captain on the CASAC 295 aircraft, assistant director training at the Air Force headquarters, the commanding officer of number 2 Squadron, Air Force Base at Tamale, and also the commanding officer of the Flying Wing Group Commander, that is the Air Force Base at Tamale. Currently, as I have said previously, he is the Director of Validation, Standardization, and Inspection within the Ghana Air Force at the headquarters. Right, Captain is a family person. He believes in the family union and he's happily married with 2 children. He is also a Christian and loves to read and watch soccer. I want to add that he's a very, very warm person, very receptive and very relational person, an open-minded person to deal with. And I'm sure that his time with us will give us that opportunity to experience his comeliness and also warm personality. That is very good to really deal with. All right, these are just a few I can mention about him, but there's more you can know about him. But for the purpose of time, there's a brief profile for you to know our captain and what he's done over the period and what he's currently doing. Students should be able to understand that embedded in your programs, whether procurement or logistics, is actually operations management. And so operations is very key within the program, and also in block 2, you are going to do that into detail. So this seminar is very, very important. And so Captain is going to take us through from operations to turbulence, understanding aviation operations and managing disruptions. If we can look at what is happening at the aviations, we can easily situate it within our own context. And also he's going to take us through some of the disruptions that they experience and how they go about managing. In fact, he has a greater scope, but this is what I can briefly say as a way of introduction. So ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very happy to introduce Group Captain Ni Eje IET. So Captain, please, these are our students. They are postgraduate students and some undergraduates. Today we have over 1,000 audience, some on Zoom and also others are listening to from the live stream. So thank you very much and take over the session, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dorcas. I'm privileged to be in your midst to share my expertise with you today. Please, let me begin at this time. Hello, please, can you hear me?
Yes. Would you want me to project from my end for you the slides?
Yes, please. Kindly.
Okay.
Yes.
Kindly WhatsApp it to me and then I will do that for you.
Let me see. Let me try sharing it quickly.
All right. Okay, I guess it's working now.
Okay. Okay, so please see change.
Hasn't changed.
Oh. Swap. Yeah, no. Oh, okay, let me try. Bring my computer. Please, I'll be with you shortly. I'll just get this technicality sorted out.
Yeah, no problem, please. So then just give us a short time. We are working on some technicalities. We'll be with you shortly. Thank you.
So
All right, thank you very much. So I think we've been able to sort it. So let's now hear from Captain. Captain, please, you can now continue. Thank you.
yes, please, do you have the slide showing?
Yes, please, we can see it very clearly.
Okay. I'm not privy to the slide here.
Okay.
Okay. So, standing, kindly let's go ahead. Apologies for the delay. I'm privileged to be with you today to share my expertise with you. Today's topic is aviation, from operations to turbulence, understanding operation and managing disruptions, military aviation perspective. Now, I think the slide is not changing. Please, is the slide changing? It's not changing on my side. Charlie.
All right. Please. Let's assume it's just a commercial break. Captain will be done very soon. There was a technical problem we are just trying to solve from his end, so we should be done very soon. Okay. So just exercise a little patience. Today you have a lot of stuff to hear from the experts from industry. But you don't have to leave the page, right? Because of the constraints and all that, so that you don't lose your position. All right.
Thank you. Okay, so distinguished ladies and gentlemen, apologies once again. Issues, after all, we are all human. The presentation today is about aviation, from operations to turbulence, understanding aviation operations, managing disruptions, military aviation perspective. That is the topic. Now, by way of introduction, since we are all logistics people, I'd like to make a quote from one of my favorite logistician and senior military officer in the World War II. He's General Omar Bradley, an American general. He made a lot of headlines during his time. And he said, amateurs talk strategy, but professionals talk logistics. And in our setting, we say that logistics is simply not support. When we talk of logistics, a lot of people talk about support, but in our context, we say it is the difference between mission readiness and operational turbulence. So when you take all your assets you have and all the plans you make, and you take away all the turbulence or challenges, then you get logistics. Today, we'll explore aviation from a perspective that goes beyond flying aircraft. Aviation is a highly integrated system that depends on people, technology, logistics, standards, and decision-making under pressure. When people hear the word turbulence, it is often associated with flying aircraft in turbulent weather and shaking. However, in military aviation, turbulence also means disruptions. And in the disruptions, we can categorize them as operational, technical, environmental, or hostile, that is enemy action, can also cause turbulence. For logistics and procurement professionals like you are, aviation success is not just built around the cockpit. It is built in supply chain, maintenance systems, quality control, and strategic planning. Before I continue, I'd like to ask to look at a practical scenario, how the Air Force does its logistics movement. This scenario we are going to see is a flight from Accra to South Sudan, a place called Bentu, where we have our ground forces. We have about 700 ground forces in that location, and we normally do logistics flights for them. And this flight is done by the Casa C-29 aircraft. It's a medium-range aircraft. So let's see how we land in Bentu. Hey. Music. Oh. No, somebody says they can't hear anything. I'm muted. I'm not muted.
Yeah, student, please, we are not muted. The speaker is showing a video, so please follow.
Yeah, can you hear? Yeah, is everything okay? Can you hear?
Okay, maybe today we are going through disruptions because of the topic, so that you can also appreciate that disruptions are a reality. There can be technical disruptions. So let's exercise patience when there's a problem. Captain is trying to share his lights again, so let's exercise the patience. All right, I think we can see the slide now. We see the cover page. Okay, so dear students, please exercise patience. We are almost through. We'll be done very soon. I guess you even needed a break, only that I wanted us to do it quickly and then we'll be done for the whole day, but we can just assume it's the break period, okay? So the online gives us higher flexibility, but these are also other realities that come with that. So please exercise a little patience.
Mm.
Okay. So this part is a math presentation. Math presentation.
Yes.
And so if you have a email.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, Captain, we can hear you.
Okay. So let's go then.
Yes, please. Thank you. All right, so students, thank you for your patience. And then we've been able to solve it. So let's see how it goes. Captain, kindly continue.
Okay. So please, we're on the video. So we're talking about a typical logistics flight. mute. I think.
Okay, all right, students. So in order not to delay further, we are still working on it, but Captain Ni Aite will still continue the presentation with the slides, and then as and when it gets ready, we'll have it projected so that we don't waste too much time. And I hope that is fine with you. We want to really apologize for this. I mean, nobody anticipated this, which is quite an unfortunate situation. But I think that what is presenting is very, very important and knowledge for you to acquire. All right, so Captain, if you can hear me, you may continue now, please. Thank you. All right, Captain, please, if you could unmute your microphone and speak.
Yes, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for all this inconvenience. So let's get back to our topic. Aviation, from operations to turbulence. From operations to turbulence, understanding aviation operations and managing disruptions. The military aviation perspective. I try to start with a video which will give you a clear summary of what military aviation is. We would have gotten a glimpse of that, but that notwithstanding, we'll continue. And I also mentioned the favorite quote from General Omar, who said that amateurs talk strategy, but professionals talk logistics. In a nutshell, he tried to tell us that logistics is simply not support, but it is the difference between mission readiness and operational turbulence. So when you have all set for your mission and you extract the turbulence, then you have mission readiness. That is what logistics definition is about. Today, we'll explore the aviation from a perspective beyond flying an aircraft. Aviation is a highly integrated system that depends on people, technology, standards, and decision-making under pressure. Most aviators have the resolve to absorb pressure because the job comes with a go and no-go decision at short notice. Now, when people hear the word turbulence, they normally associate it with aircraft flying in weather, shaking of the aircraft due to weather. But in this context, we are going to look at it in the perspective of disruption. And it can be classified as operational, tactical, technical, environmental, and sometimes due to enemy action or hostilities. For logistics and procurement professionals like you, aviation success is not just built around the cockpit. It is built in supply chain, maintenance systems, and system controls, and also strategic planning. Without strategy, almost every endeavor is likely not to succeed. Then this brings me to the aim of my presentation, which is to highlight military aviation perspective in a turbulent period. Now, in doing so, I'll look at military aviation architecture. And in the architecture, I'll be focusing on what the Air Force architecture looks like. Then we'll look at understanding aviation turbulence beyond weather. We'll also delve into the disruption management in military aviation, how we resolve the problem. Then I'll bring you back to my office, validation, standardization, inspection, and quality control, how we try to mitigate all the turbulence that we foresee. Then last but not the least, we'll look at future disruptions and emerging challenges. Okay, we are far behind time, so let's glance through quickly the first scope item, which is the military aviation architecture. Every Air Force the world over has a headquarters. And in Ghana, the headquarters run 4 bases across the country. The bases are positioned in Accra, Takoradi, Tamale, and Bui. Bui is our latest base. It's not really up to the full status of a base yet. It's just in the budding stages now. Before I look at the components of the management system, military aviation, I would like us to look at the mission planning cycle. The mission planning cycle is what we do as logisticians. Firstly, we receive the task order, what we call tasking, from higher headquarters. So at this level, all the logisticians are assumed to be on operational basis where they practice their trade. So you receive the task from higher headquarters to, let's say, move this cargo from position A to position B. The second stage is the planning. That is where the work starts. We do risk assessments during the planning stage. We do route planning, fuel calculations, and threat analysis. When we are operating in peacetime in Ghana, we hardly do any threat analysis because it is said that we are operating in a green zone, not in a red or yellow zone. Then, after planning, we move into the execution phase, where the actual flying and mission performance takes place. When the mission is executed successfully, we do what we call debriefing, where we learn what went wrong and what we did right. Then we apply that in the lessons learned phase so that the next mission should be better. The cycle ensures continuous operation improvement. Now, so it's taxing, planning, execution, debriefing, and lessons learned. It's 5 stages. Now let's look at the core operational components. The core operational components are mainly the people who make operations stick. And the first on the list are the pilots. They are the ones who fly the platforms, but they do not work alone. Their work will be meaningless without their team. The team is made up of firstly, the engineers and maintenance staff. They ensure that we have airworthy and reliable aircraft for our task. Then we have the air traffic controllers. The air traffic controllers in Ghana actually do a lot of work because they are in charge of a region we call the Accra Flight Information Region. The Accra Flight Information Region controls the airspace over Ghana, Togo, and Benin. And it also controls most parts of the Gulf of Guinea. So that is the job of the ATC, to maintain the conflicting traffic, making sure aircraft are well separated and routes are well followed. The fourth on the list are our logisticians, logistics and supply chain, where we get our spare parts, our fuel, ground equipment, and technical tools. The technical tools can involve even personnel. Then last but not the least, in the aviation core components are the intelligence integration. The intelligence integration guys are the ones who provide weather data, threat assessment, and terrain analysis before any flight is done. If you operate in hostile areas like Mali, you do not take off without a threat analysis or mission analysis. It's very important. When we look at the architecture of the military aviation, in a nutshell, the key point here is that military aviation system is dependent. We rely on about 5 pillars to make it work. Failure of one of the pillars may not allow the mission to start in the first place. And this is grounded in systems theory. Now, the second scope item is understanding turbulence beyond weather. When we talk about turbulence in operation, we talk about disruptions. And the disruptions come in 5 folds. We break them into 5 folds. The first disruption we normally encounter is a technical disruption. The technical disruption can be engine failure, avionic malfunction, or software errors. Nowadays, all the aircraft are what we call glass cockpit aircraft. Every system in the aircraft is computerized or digitized. So we use a lot of software and computer programs in the aircraft. Any mistake in just one of the softwares could ground the machine. In 2015, there was an aviation accident in Spain when the EU countries decided to build a strategic airlift machine called the A400. An engineer mistakenly deleted softwares controlling 3 of the engines. So in the air, the 3 engines seized and the machine crashed. It was a fatal one. So we realized that minor component failure can ground aircrafts. So technical disruptions are very important. The next is human factors. The personnel involved in air operations, military air operations, must always be at their best when it comes to physical condition or physiological condition. Psychologically, they must be on top. There shouldn't be issues of fatigue because it is movement of personnel. When you look at the UN definition of logistics, it will tell you that you have to plan, is a planning of an execution of movements of personnel, air services, engineering, maintenance, and all that. So the personnel are key. All these personnel involved in the aviation industry must coordinate. If there's no resource coordination, then there's a gap for accidents, and that is where the human factors come in. So in a nutshell, human errors remain a major contributor of all aviation accidents globally. When there's lack of training, for example, it causes disruption. Pilots who are not well trained and they enter into different airspaces from their home airspaces become a danger to other pilots or other aircraft in the terrain. So human factors is key. The third disruption we are used to is the environmental disruptions. The last accident we had in Ghana in August was caused by poor weather. Poor weather is really an obstacle we have to deal with daily. And every season of the year brings its own weather. Last year, we realized a lot of flights were canceled in Europe, especially around Iceland, due to volcanic ashes. Then we had a few weeks ago, winter storms, snowstorms, canceling flights in Europe. Then in Africa, we have what we call Habub. Those who have operated in sub-Saharan Africa and the Sahel regions. We realize that sandstorms are seasonal. When this weather phenomenon shows its head, we just have to ground all platforms and we do not fly during those periods. So environmental disruptions are key. Aside that, we also have bird strikes. Birds can be an environmental nuisance when it comes to our flying as logisticians, transportation. When it comes to seasons where birds move from one region to the other, we ought to plan our logistics movements carefully so that we do not encounter any flux out there. Next is security disruption. The security disruption is normally observed in war-torn countries. In the Ghana Air Force, we have operated in Congo, Liberia in the 90s, Congo in the 60s, Liberia in the 90s, and between 2006 and 2017, we were deployed in Cote d'Ivoire under UN MINUSMA, UNOSI. Then in between 2014 and 2017, we were deployed in Mali. We were flying in all these missions. And when you look at the security situation, I'll give an example of what we experienced in Mali in 2016, November 29th. The airport in which we operated was attacked. Then some machines were blown up. Our aircraft sustained minor injuries because we were just 40 meters from the explosion. This disrupted our activities for some weeks for us to maintain the machine. And eventually we had to curtail our operations in the mission because the United Nations could not assure us of security in the mission. So security disruptions are key, stemming from gunfire, enemy missile threats, electronic warfare, and even cyber attacks. In Mali, for example, we were not flying below 15,000 feet because all the belligerent forces had weapons, RPGs that can fly beyond 15,000 feet. If you're a logistician and you have to plan, it costs money to fly higher. But when it comes to security disruptions, we have to take all these factors into consideration. I'm not going to talk about cyber operations as part of the disruption now because they form part of non-traditional threats like human security, which attacks almost every endeavor of society. Whether you are a logistician or not, it still affects us. It's still economic security and all that. Now, when we'll look at logistics disruption as well. That is the last on understanding aviation turbulence beyond weather, logistics disruptions. Currently, the Ghana Air Force operates about 8 helicopters from Russia. And since the Russian war started, Russian-Ukraine war, we've been starved of spare parts for these platforms. The Russians are not comfortable because they believe the parts will end up in Ukraine. The Ukrainians are also not supplying us because they need to keep their war machinery running. They do not have excess space to ship out. So in this case, we as the end users and their clients are the ones who suffer disruptions in our operations because currently all our tasks in rural Ghana have been suspended due to platform being grounded because of lack of space. These are challenging issues for us. And we can also talk about fuel in periods when there's fuel scarcity globally. It affects Ghana Air Force a lot because we do not produce aviation fuel in-house. In a nutshell, the entire supply chain is affected by the disruptions from logistics. When it comes to our other platforms that are not produced in Russia, like our Chinese platforms, if America is not supplying the Chinese with some semiconductors, they cannot produce avionic parts. So this also affects us, and it is difficult to keep pace and operate normally without disruption if you are not getting parts from your equipment manufacturers. So if you look at the entire scenario of understanding turbulence, you realize that operational turbulence is multi-domain. It is not just about atmospheric issues. Next, I can see the slides are back. So we can go to our third scope item, which is disruption management and how in military aviation. Okay, let me see. Just a minute. Let me try to unlock my screen. Please, can we go back to the previous slide? Yes. So, disruption. Please, let's go back. We have to go to the first slide. In the disruption. No, the first slide in disruption. No. The first slide in disruption. That's the third scope item. That is where we are now. We talked about risk management framework. Yes, that's a risk management framework. So when we talk about disruption management, the first item we consider is a risk management framework. And it comes in 4 stages. The first is the hazard identification. Then we talk about risk assessment, mitigating plan, and continuous monitoring. Okay, anytime we have a task, we have to identify the hazard that may be associated with the task. Then we do a risk assessment. Is the risk assessment proved to be manageable? Then we can undertake the task. Because in the military, we don't do safety first. We do mission first and safety always. Because every job in the military, every flying duty has an inherent risk, but it ought to be managed before we can execute the task. After that, we do mitigation. The level of mitigation present determines whether we should continue with the task. Then finally, we do continuous monitoring. Next, please. Military commanders and the crew always have to take decisions with limited information. So in real-time decision making, the crew are called upon to take action within split seconds. The picture on your screens was taken during the COVID times. We used to fly with PPEs. These were our uniforms for flying. They caused a lot of disruptions for us because they increased our crew rest time. They rather decreased it for us. Because if you have to come to work an hour before flight, to dress in these suits, you have to come to work 2 hours before time. It was difficult. Now, when we did the execution of the flight itself, we had a lot of challenges, especially in the rural areas. This particular picture was taken in Tamale, where we're airlifting a medevac from Bolga. Helicopter brought the medevac from Bolga without the required number of medical crew, because the medical personnel who were supposed to accompany the medevac, the patient, refused, because they claim they will be locked up in the aircraft with the COVID patients, which was dangerous because COVID was, of course, an airborne disease. We faced a lot of problems during medical evacuation in COVID time. Sometimes they delayed us, and because we did not have lights at the rural areas, you'll be forced to take off without passengers sometimes. It was difficult. Then pilots had to divert sometimes also due to poor weather, and we often did route changes and altitude changes, all of that within split seconds. All these measures we put in had a huge likelihood of disrupting our plans for the day. Next, please. The next is redundancy systems. We have redundancies in technical, that's excess. If we use digitized equipment, we always have a backup in the form of analog. Then for the human resource part, for engineers, for example, we ought to have equally qualified engineers on each base. So when we lift off from Accra, you land in Tamale or any other base and you have a technical challenge, you can fall on qualified resource personnel on those bases. Then when it comes to logistics backing, logistics redundancies, we always ought to increase our wartime reserves from 20 to perhaps 60% if we forecast disruptions in the supply chains, which will disrupt our operations. We have also forward operating bases, which keeps most of our logistics as well. Next, please. If we look at the map in front of us now, we can see some positions we call the forward operating bases, which are scattered all over the country. Currently, we have 20 forward operating bases in Ghana, and we are cooperating seriously with our partners because aviation is a global dependent endeavor. We cannot achieve all our backups within the Ghanaian market. Next, please. Command and control roles. We normally need real-time intelligence to fly. Over a month ago, we had a Nigerian aircraft arrested in Burkina Faso because they landed without permit. Yes, this is where our real-time intelligence comes. The security dynamics in the sub-region can change at any time. Yes, sometimes you can take off delivering cargo to Liberia or any neighboring country. By the time you approach the country, there's change in government and you have to turn back because they will not allow you to land. So our aims for flying movement must always be pointed on the spot. Then weather updates. Weather is always not predictable. Sometimes weather changes and we can't even understand the phenomena. So we need to invest in real-time weather. Currently, we have subscribed to a lot of apps and all that helps us, but we cannot have enough. Then we also have the threat monitoring. Threat monitoring is relevant for us in Ghana in particular because we have our neighboring countries, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo, all have been attacked by terrorists before. So we know the risk we face in the sub-region. We always have to be ready. These can cause serious disruptions when they are taken for granted. Our last crash in Ghana was caused by weather. Next, please. The key point is that to manage our disruptions, we need to build resilience. And resilience is built through planning, redundancies, and rapid decision-making. Next. Now, this is my office, the Directorate of Validation, Standardization, and Inspection, our Quality Assurance Office. It is our office that does not sleep because this is where governance protects lives and assets. We believe in uniformity as a military. All our procedures on our bases must be the same. So when we move crew across bases, they do not have to relearn procedures. And that is where this office is important. In doing so, we reduce human error and we reduce variability, which creates risk. Next, please. Validation. This is where we confirm that procedures work in the real environment. We design the procedures, we are the regulators of the procedures, so they have to work. We train personnel competencies and we make sure that we get the best out of the input we put in. Next, please. And for validation, every base has what we call safety committees at the squadron and the wing levels, where they ensure that validation takes place quarterly. Next, please. So as part of our training, the Ghana Air Force has invested in a new college called the Ghana Air Force Aviation College. We train our engineers, technicians, operations clerks, the supply guys, firemen, all those who are associated with aviation, military aviation operations. That's air power. Go to this school for training. We do not leave any stone unturned when it comes to validation, standardization, inspection, and quality assurance, especially the personnel aspect where we need quality men to operate the technologies we acquire. Next, please. Next slide. Now, the inspection oversight. Inspections identify non-compliance, equipment deterioration, and drift in procedures. With time, when soldiers, the military is so regimented such that every year we have professionals retiring. Every year, an intake must retire. So we need continuity.
This is where compliance comes in. Sometimes we veer into discretions, where people use their discretions to take decisions because the initial guys who were trained have left the service. So the compliance office must do strict oversight, and that is why it is established to do that, to avoid disruptions caused by non-compliance and drift from procedures. Next. Now, in today's world, everything is digitized. So we have a data-driven safety oversight where personnel qualification, pilot categorization, and medicals are all tracked online. It tracks the competencies, and at the end of the day, we do trend analysis, whether we are improving in the quality of personnel and our procedures or not. Everything around us today is digitized to reduce disruptions. Those days when we used to have hard copies, relied on hard copies, we had a lot of information being lost because we couldn't track them. Next, please. The last on the validation is a safety culture. In the Air Force, we say mission first, safety always. That is our mantra for safety. And we know that when command is involved in safety awareness programs, compliance improves. So every stage of our operations, every stage of our strategic meeting with our men at their base, we chip in safety briefings. That is all we do to minimize disruptions due to ignorance of safety. And we practice a safety culture where our personnel are encouraged to bring out every anomaly they observed in the operations process. We have regular incident reporting forms for them and ombudsman offices at the bases, the flight safety office, where you can walk in and make your complaint when it comes to safety. Let's not forget that all these things are championed during peacetime operations. In wartime, the dynamics change a bit. Next, please. So in a nutshell, oversight prevents more problems from becoming an accident. Next. Okay, so this happens to be the future disruptions and emerging challenges. Now, everybody is talking about AI. AI has taken over almost every endeavor. So we also take cognizance of that fact and try to catch up with the new trends in aviation. Today, most of our repair work are done by AI before the practicals are done on the aircraft. This is the level we want to get to. Our manufacturers have introduced us to this culture, and gradually we are subscribing to portals where we work with them to keep abreast with the cyber network and AI animation in flight and all that. Next, please. Future disruptions. Unmanned systems. Drones are here with us. In Ghana, we know of the zipline flying blood in the rural areas and all that. We need policy and vibrant regulations to govern us when it comes to AI and drone unmanned systems, because it is dangerous for us not to control what flies over us. This will cause disruptions if expatriates take over this domain and overwhelm our airspace with drones which we do not control as nationals. In this endeavor, the national security are the ones who are handling this. The Ghana Air Force has a specific role of keeping territorial integrity over Ghana. When we have any complaints, that is where we act. Now, when you look at the global supply chain vulnerabilities, geopolitics, we've mentioned China, US, semiconductors, grounding our aircraft because we do not get the spare backings at the right time. there are always delays and bottlenecks in shipping. If Ukraine and Russia are the main producers of helicopters, they also cause us a lot of disruptions in our operations, because almost every aircraft now is what we call AOG, aircraft on ground, awaiting spare parts from these countries, which are not forthcoming because of geopolitical reasons. Next, please. Next slide. Yes, we cannot talk about future disruptions and emerging challenges without mentioning global warming. Global warming is having a lot of effects on us. Currently, every country that buys an aircraft needs to build a hangar to keep the aircraft. In the days when we used to use virtually analog systems in the machine, no computerized systems, we used to keep our aircraft in the open air. But now, with the computerization and delicate machines used, every aircraft must be in hangars. Next, please. The future of aviation success heavily depends on logistics, intelligence, and procurement strategy. Other than that, disruptions will abound. Next. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have concluded. Military, in conclusion, anyway, I think we've said quite enough, so we'll pause here for the question time. I must apologize again for the time lost in technological issues. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Captain, for this wonderful presentation. I think the technical issues were able to be solved eventually. Perhaps we needed to go through this to understand that disruptions are realities. They are realities within our operations so that we can build the needed resilience in managing them. So at this time, I want to invite students to bring their questions so that Captain can deal with that. So just as we did previously, if you have a question, please raise up your hand and then I'll call you. So once I call you, you unmute your microphone and speak. All right, so I will start with Ishmael Kweku. Please unmute and speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam. Captain, please, my question is related to you. When you said that normally you get the order within a short time for you to proceed to do the work. So I wanted to find out how then do you plan and more so what.
Oh.
All right, I think we lost him. But Captain, please address it if you had the question right.
He said, how then do we plan? Well, in the military, we always have a standby crew. No military base shuts down. We operate 24 hours. So even if we are not flying, if you go to the hangar, there are always engineers there who are on duty, waiting for a task to pop out. There are pilots who are on standby in the messes, waiting for a task. So we don't really shut down. We always have a standby crew. If that answers your question.
All right, thank you very much, Captain. All right, Philip Aqua.
Okay, thank you, Captain. Good afternoon. Thank you for your in-depth submission as well. I just wanted to ask a straightforward question. What qualifies somebody like me after my MSc in logistics if I want to enter into the military aviation, aside your usual training you have to go through to become a military personnel? So, for instance, a layperson like me with a certificate of MSc, and I want to probably practice my logistics in, let's say, military aviation. Is that possible? And if it is it enough with just the MSc? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much. The MSc qualifies you to join the military. But if you want to join as a man, you know, in the military, we have civilian employees and we have men in uniform, soldiers. If you want to join as a soldier, then you have to meet the age requirement. We use the age requirement because of the training. The training regime is so difficult. If you are across a certain age, you cannot make it. You cause injury to your body. So if you are above the age, then you can come in as a civilian employee. Okay.
Captain, that's what I'm asking, actually, not in uniform, but as
yes.
What
yes.
qualifies you?
It means you can come in as a civilian employee. That option is also open.
Oh, okay. So it's just like applying.
Yes, it's just like
normal.
And with that, we do not publish. You just will have to walk into the civil employee establishment and present your application. And you know, we have 3 services: Army, Navy, and the Air Force. All these 3 services work with logisticians. So you can fit anywhere from the medical to the Air Force to the Army infantry to the Navy logistics.
Okay. Thank you very much, Captain.
All right, thank you. I think that Philip is clear. Michael Yeboah, please go ahead.
Hello, Doc. Thank you very much. Captain, thank you for your presentation. During your presentation, you made mention that the Russian-Ukraine war made some of your flights grounded for some period. I want to find out, in that period, was there any change in procurement strategy? Were you looking at elsewhere to get this part, or these parts are always available from this Russia and Ukraine side? Was there any change in strategy during that period? And also, has there been any strategy going into the future to change where you get some of these flights?
Thank you very much. So what happens is that we purchase helicopters from all over the world. It's part of our diversity to prevent monopoly and grounding of our fleet. Okay, you realize that currently government is acquiring helicopters from France, 4 of them. It was announced in Parliament. Okay, that is the main strategy we can adopt now, either than research and developing our homegrown helicopters. And that may take us years because the technology is not available in Ghana. So the strategy here is to diversify our acquisitions everywhere. So when one part of the global geopolitics is stagnant or depriving us, disrupting our operations, we can always fall on other places to work out. That is what we do currently.
All right, thank you very much. Isaac Buadu, you may go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is that you made mention that like flying higher, it means that you are spending more. So I was asking whether you practice the push or the pull, like logistics. How do you act? I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying.
Please kindly break down your question.
Hey, can you break down your question or can you come again? What do you mean? Hello, Isaac, can you hear us? Okay, it seems Isaac can't hear, so let's move to the next person. Joseph Kweku, please go ahead with your question.
Oh, okay, thank you, Doc. Okay, thank you, Doc. Captain, please, in your submission, you made mention of hazard identification. I want to know, in the military service, how do you report your hazard identification, and do you have any implementation plan to mitigate all those hazards that has been identified?
Okay, thank you very much. So we identify, depending on the scenario, hazard can occur anytime. Even a bad tire under the aircraft is a hazard. Okay, if the aircraft is smoking, we know it is a hazard because it may be due to engine malfunction. If a pilot takes off too low, close to buildings, that is dangerous, and we have to investigate that the pilot has become a hazard to the population. All right. Anyone who sees this must report it through the safety officers at the base level. Then when the report comes, we'll implement what we call a safety investigation into the matter. Then the investigators will do what will bring out a safety recommendation. The safety recommendations are not punitive. They are to improve the system. However, if we detect recklessness in the behavior of any personnel, then in that case, we don't do just a safety investigation. We graduate to what we call a board of inquiry. The board of inquiry will determine culpability, who is guilty. Then disciplinary action may be taken.
Okay, thank you, Captain. Well understood.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nana Kwame, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. Captain, please, in your submission, you said you consider the mission first without necessarily consider the safety aspect. And again, you said you do risk assessment. So does it mean at what point that you would want to consider safety, because in all you are trying to save life, and so at what point would you prioritize the safety in terms of delivering something to a place or any services that require your need?
Okay, so I mentioned wartime scenarios and peacetime scenarios. All the regulations I mentioned today are for peace times. We sit down and do certain analysis before we do every flight. Okay. In war times, we say mission first, safety always. If we have a war in Tamale, for example, and we have to fly at night, and we have only one landing light on the aircraft, and we have to fly there to save Mother Ghana from losing a war, then we'll say mission first. Remember that we are not civilians. Our job is purely sacrificial. We are not reckless, but we are principled. So we consider every situation by context. When we are fighting a war, our decision level is different from during peacetime. In peacetime operations, the stakes are quite low. So milder, or I'll say stricter regulations apply. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, all right, thank you. I think that is very clear enough. All right, let's go to Peter. Is it Seshi?
And thank you, Captain. I want to focus on the crew. As the crew works, fatigue sets in. So I want to ask if you have any fatigue risk management system available in your operation. And the second aspect, whether you also have cross-training staff for multiple roles, or when one person assigned to a specific task and is not around, that means that there will be disruptions in the operations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, we have what we call crew rest time to curtail crew fatigue. So every pilot, mandatorily, every day you have to sleep 8 hours minimum. Then you do not drink alcohol 12 hours before flight. It's mandatory because we do random breathalyzer tests. Okay. This is part of our crew fatigue and risk management processes. When we fly long distances, which may be longer than 8 hours, like flying directly to Spain, then we use what we call augmented crew. We double the number of pilots so that we can be swapping. All right. So per regulation, we all have the number of hours we should fly a day, a week, a month, and a quarter. We cannot violate it. If you fly more than 60 hours a month, then you have to go for an interview to explain why. Then when it comes to the cross-training, yes, for example, I fly as a pilot. I'm a staff officer. I'm a staff technical compliance officer. I'm a safety management officer. So that is the kind of training we have. In peacetime, our main responsibility is to train as a military. When there's no war, our core business is training. So the average military officer is very trained. You move from one course to the other, both locally and internationally. So cross-training is the norm in the military. Does that answer the question?
All right. Yes, I guess so. So I will take the last 3 questions and then we should be able to bring the session to a close. All right, so Paul Avetu, you are next. And then after you, Solomon, and then Seth Frimpong. All right.
Thank you very much, Doc, for the opportunity. And thank you, Captain, for the submission as well. And my question has to do with transporting goods, for instance. Let's say you mentioned that you transport to red zones, yellow and green. Assuming the place is a red zone, and then at that point, the aircraft you are supposed to use also have issues, and you don't have parts to fix them and go. How do you deal with transporting those goods to the red zones, considering that the fact that the goods has to get there, and then you also need the parts to fix the aircrafts and also before you can get going?
Okay, so thank you very much. Every contested environment is a red zone. When you have war-torn countries like when we had Liberia, ECOMOG, we were there flying. Then in Cote d'Ivoire, under UNOSI, we were there. Then in Mali, in MINUSMA, we were there flying. Every aircraft has what we call a minimum equipment list. If you have a landing light broken, for example, you have to check the minimum equipment, whether the aircraft can fly with that. If it can't, it's a go. If it can't, it's a no-go. Then aside this regulation from the minimum equipment list, we have what we call squadron procedures. The squadrons are the home of the aircraft, and those homes have their procedures, how they fly in contested environments. If the area is full of RPGs, and we know in the day we cannot fly, they will have to change and fly at night under no light condition, pitch black, things like that. Okay, so every situation has its context, how we operate. Then you look at the caliber of the crew. When you have special missions, then you use experienced crew. Every crew in the Air Force has a rating or a qualification, depending on your experience. So all this analysis comes into play when we are doing our risk management before we task an aircraft to a contested area. When we were in Mali, we were based in northern Mali, a place called Gao. And in Gao, the United Nations had what we call a super camp. In the super camp, there was electricity, all right, but we did not show the light at night. No light was lit at night because it was a strategy to prevent targeting of the camp by militants. Yes, but we had our aircraft there, all right. It was unfortunate that we were bombed there and we had to come home, which was no fault of ours. It was the fault of the UN, who were supposed to provide the perimeter security for the aircraft, and they failed. So we've seen these scenarios before, and we have remedial actions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So Solomon, please go ahead with yours.
Hello. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc, and thank you, Captain, for the opportunity and then the in-depth submission. Captain, I want to know, after procuring the aircraft from the manufacturer, do you still give the manufacturer the contract for spare parts supplies and that of the aircraft maintenance? Because from your submission, the Ukraine and Russia war happened to stop some of the aircraft operation because of both countries were not ready to supply you items that will help to operate the aircraft. So I want to know, do you still give contract to the manufacturer for the supplies and the maintenance of the same aircraft procured from that manufacturer? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's a very interesting question. Well, the aircraft manufacturers are businessmen. They are governments and they are business in your orientation. They make sure that when you buy from them, you sign a contract which says that you bring your aircraft back to them for maintenance. And they know all the tricks in the industry. I mean, the aviation industry is over 100 years old. So what they do is that even when they produce 2 aircraft for you, they make sure that the component on one aircraft may not necessarily fit on the other aircraft. So that when you lose a tire on aircraft A, you have to go to them and buy a tire for the aircraft A. You cannot cannibalize from aircraft B onto aircraft A. That is the industry. It's a very tight and secured industry where manufacturers protect their interests. So it will be very difficult for you to go to a third party unless the manufacturer grants that permission. Other than that, you have to go back to the manufacturer. That is why we suffer delays and disruptions in the aircraft industry, because it's not necessarily a free market.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Captain. Thank you very much.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, an issue. Wow. Then it can really be a source of disruption that you face.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. So the last person is Seth Frimpong, and then we are done. Seth, please go ahead.
Okay, Captain. I want you to help us relate to your submission and 6 August, what the unfortunate issue that happened in Ghana, where you lost that. Can you really tell us what could have happened relating to your operation? Thank you.
Please, you are not too clear, but were you asking about the accidents that happened last year in August?
Exactly, sir. Just relate to it. Exactly. Tell us what really has gone wrong, what you think.
Okay. So, the government presented a submission on the accidents, and the conclusion was bad weather, poor weather. I happen to be a member of the Accident Investigation Board. So I'm quite privy to most of the investigation findings. But the point is, anytime there's an investigation, you look at it in 3 dimensions. You look at the human being, the machine, and the environment. Okay. When we check the background of the human beings, they were competent pilots. Okay. The captain himself was a safety officer. So when it comes to competencies, we tick the box that we had it right. Now, when it came to the machine, the machines were 10-year-old. Okay. In the aviation industry, a 10-year-old machine is quite a brand new machine, because if you look at the engine hours of the aircraft that got involved in the accident, it had not flown even half of its required 2,400 hours before servicing. It had done less than 900 hours. So it was fairly an underutilized machine, fairly in a good state. Then the issue came with the environment. In August, the weather was extremely tough. And on that said day, Kumasi reported what we call a special aviation weather. The visibility was so bad, and the clouds were extremely low on the day. But we've been operating in Ghana, flying in the Air Force for over 60 years. So Ghana is our home. We are masters of our terrain. But when adverse weather strikes, there's very little a pilot can do. It's just like turbulence. A pilot has no control. And in this case, the conclusion was what we call a downdraft, a strong burst of vertical wind from above. That is what hit the machine. With my 27 years of aviation in Ghana, this is the first time I've witnessed such an occurrence. We always see turbulence in air and some tough weather conditions. But what these guys experienced, unfortunately, may their soul rest in peace, was a different intensity weather. Okay, Kumasi is just 30 miles from Obuasi, where the accident occurred. And Kumasi, they closed the runway at that particular time. Okay, because their weather station told them that, hey, this was a situation, it wasn't good. In Obuasi, we cross-checked, the pilot cross-checked before he took off with what we call local informants on ground. And with the factors and observation they gave him, it was a go situation. That is the decision under pressure we talk about, split-second decision. And you realize that he managed to fly from Accra to Obuasi, just 6.5 miles to Obuasi, about 10 kilometers to Obuasi. That is when they crashed. So they were almost there. You see, sometimes these accidents happen. It happens and we have no control. I hope I have answered your question, if not fully, partially.
I guess so. In fact, that issue was a very sad situation. And I'm very happy you brought it up. And at least students should know that in dealing with some of these issues, it's not a one-way issue. Mentioning 3 things: the people, the machine, and the environment. So, as a logistics student, you should not, restrict your knowledge to only some few technicalities. You need to be very broadened in order to know the multiple factors influencing issue. And I think that it's good so that they can open up themselves to learn more right? Managing disruptions, issues in operations and all. All right, that's very insightful, and I'm sure the students can attest to that. So all too soon or all too good, we've come to the end of the session. I think that the questions are enough for now. We can't answer all questions. And I'm sure the students are happy learning this because this is a purely practical, insight we are given. And it's actually enriches the experiential learning so that it doesn't appear they are just learning theory. And of course, we can only cite a few practical examples, but programs like this, you get a very rich, in-depth knowledge about context-specific issues. And I'm very happy for the experience. So thank you so much, Captain, Group Captain Ni AJIT. The session has been very, very insightful and very, very relevant and rich experience indeed. And on behalf of the students, KNUST, Distance Learning, and the Department of Supply Chain, we want to say that we very much appreciate your time, your great efforts. Even though you went through a lot of frustrations and disruptions, perhaps it's a good case study on its own. When students are doing practicals, they go through practicals. So logistics students and procurement students take what happened as a practical scenario to really allow for you to understand what we have well shared. So thank you so much, Captain. We really appreciate your time. And we hope that there will be more opportunities to share because you met just a few of the students, even though there are thousands of students who participated, both the Zoom and also the live stream. I'm sure that you can also be beneficial to other students. And so I will maintain this good relationship we've started so we can still invite you for more discussions. Yeah. I think my HOD is around, Professor Kwating. Godfrey, please unmute. HOD, I think I've unmuted you. You can speak. He wants to also share.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay, Dr. Lucas, thank you so much for holding the fort. And then for our speakers, Mr. Freddua Agyemang, and then group leader Ni AJIT, we thank you so much for the insight. Even though there were some technical hitches, we managed to pull through. That is what matters. We thank you so much for the insight that you've given us. And then also for the students, we appreciate your time for having that patience to wait for us in times where there were some challenges and the like. We truly appreciate it. And it's our hope that going forward, we will be able to talk more about, have such programs, and then it will give you more insight. We thank you so much for coming. As Dr. Lucas said, this is just the beginning. We will try to maintain the relationship so that our students will benefit from you as well. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you too. I also apologize for the initial calls. And please, the students, if it's possible, they should watch the documentary I put together for the medical evacuation. I think it's interesting. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, I think I can share the slides with them. Captain, are you comfortable I share the slides with them?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so I'll share with them so that they can watch the details of everything, so that they can have that relevance. We even have aviation students. Some of our students are doing aviation. Yeah, Mr. Fifi Boadu is one of our students. I even supervise his thesis actually. So we have logistics, we have aviation, we have data analytics. We even have those in agri, health, pharmaceutical, supply chain. So many different types of students. So I'm sure that, yes, you can still be beneficial to all of them. So we'll definitely invite you again. Once my HOD has given also the go ahead, I'm sure we are going to see you more. So we appreciate so much for your time. Thank you very much. And then we will still talk after the session. Thank you very much.
Bye then.
All right. And to you students, thanks so much for coming today. You did very well. You came in your numbers. We will pull the attendance sheet and keep it. All such programs are mandatory, as I indicated. So it's part of your program you are studying. So it's not like you have the option to come or not. But I must commend you for your good behavior in attending massively. A lot of you were also looking at the live stream, which shows even people were getting to me, they couldn't enter the Zoom. We are sorry, initially the plan was to do the webinar, but I don't know why it changed. So going forward, we make sure we use the webinar to be able to take all of you so that you don't go through such struggles. But in summary, I appreciate your good behavior, your cooperation, your effort, and everything you put in place. I also want to thank the HOD for always being a great leader in spearheading all such programs. I work under the HOD, and if this has come to pass, is also because his leadership has actually permitted and supported that. And I also want to thank any faculty member who was able to attend. Most of the faculty members are lecturing over the weekend, right? But I still invited them. So I want to thank those who were able to appear. We also want to show appreciation to our major support staff, Gideon. We've been working behind the scene, solving a lot of technical issues and all for speakers, for students. He's been wonderful working with him. So I appreciate you, Gideon, for your great work and everyone who played any role in making this program a reality. So I wish you all the best. Please note that Block 2 commences next week and it's online for all of you. When it's online, all centers have the same thing. It's only face-to-face that have certain differences. Make sure you have a copy of your timetable and follow. I'll give you updates on your platform and also share the Zoom links with you so that you can be your class. Let me also put across that once we do the demarcations on the Zoom links, for example, logistics A is Accra logistics only or Accra procurement only. That is your class. It's just like a FESCA class. You don't move. We, the lecturers, are the ones who move. So you stay in your class and then we will be doing the movement here and there. So that what happened during the first block should not happen to create any kind of confusion. And please note that for your midterm for block 1, it will be combined with the midterm for block 2 on the 7th and 8th. So if you've not started learning, I encourage you to start doing so because you are going to write 4 papers at a go, and it's quite a lot of work. So put in an effort and study. I said earlier that at KNUST, we encourage students to study beyond their slides, getting their textbooks and all relevant materials. Your questions may be essay questions, multiple choice, or any type, but irrespective of the type, you need to be able to understand to respond. So please make sure that you are going through to study, you are listening to your videos, you are in your group discussions to also learn, and any assignment or instruction that comes from your lecturers, you make sure that you actually obey that very religiously. So on that note, we bring this session to an end. I hope you've had a good session. You can also send me your feedback via the chat before you leave. Whether it was a good session, do you need more of this? Has it been insightful? Do you think it's relevant to your program? Let me hear from you via the chat. Very well. So that going forward, whatever we plan, we should be able to, look at your comments, your feedback to do a better program. But we still apologize for the technical hitch. Next time, I'm sure it will not happen. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so the feedback has been good. Most of you have responded very well. All right. So leadership, fortunately, your HOD is even around. So he's also seeing your feedback. So, your HOD and other management, persons will definitely get to know that you love this. So more of this. So we should be able to organize more for you. All right. HOD, can I close them? All right, so HOD has been teaching over the weekend and combining with you, so it's been quite hectic. All right, on that note, I wish you the very best. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and then Block 2 commences next weekend. Please be checking your platforms for updates, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, so you can unmute and speak. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Bye, 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 bye.
I like you.
We love you, dog. We love you.
Love you too.
Bye. Next 2 weeks. Get prepared.
No, in fact, you're on top of your job. I like it.
You see, chop cases.
That's the way you talk.
I don't like that.
You sound so nice. Oh, dog.
More data, Papa.
Okay. How Vincent?
Oh.
Then you have Vincent. Please, my Takoradi people, learn for me. I'll be asking you.